It's time to speak up. This video is going to be a little bit longer than normal, but I think you guys need to hang on to the end because there's some really important information coming your way. I've been asked by multiple people, when did I think that we might need to be concerned about troops in our streets? And I've got a date for you. I've been waiting because it seems so crazy. I've been waiting to see if certain things happened before I said this, and certain things are happening that make me more convinced than ever that we need to be on our guard on or about April 20th and in the days and weeks right thereafter. Hang with me because I'm going to tell you why, and it'll make sense, and it won't sound like I'm just a crazy woman spewing things out. So on January the 20th, President Trump signed his executive order on immigration. And in that executive order, he said in 90 days from the date, which will be April 20th, that the Director of Homeland Security and the Secretary of Defense have to give a joint report to President Trump about how his immigration policy is going, how they're being able to enact his policy. And it says in there that they are specifically to consider whether additional things need to be done, including, and it mentions the Insurrection Act. Now, the Insurrection Act allows the president to send troops, our Army, our National Guards, to send them into the streets. This has happened before. This is not the first administration that has used the Insurrection Act, but this is the first administration who has ever used it in this manner, and one that has also shown such a blatant disregard for the Constitution. So on April 20th, the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Homeland Security are going to go to President Trump, and they're going to talk about whether or not they think that they need to institute the Insurrection Act to implement his policies. The Insurrection Act is going to, I'm positive, is going to label anyone who is doing like the people in Boston and trying to fight for taking immigrants, people like me and many of you who are speaking out. Anyone that is going to be in any way opposition to this administration will be labeled an insurrectionist, and we will be dealt with as such. Arrests, I believe, will be imminent. People are also asking when to leave the country. I think if he follows the law, which is, I know, ridiculous, right? Before he institutes the Insurrection Act, he has to make some announcements that he's going to. If we hear that, we need to be aware that the borders are probably going to close pretty imminently. And so people need to, it's not time to run right now. Things could still intervene, and I keep hoping that things will. But things are happening faster even than Project 2025 architects could have imagined. And that's why I feel like I need to give you guys this information now. While I could be still proven wrong, I would rather be proven wrong than to not have given you this information when you will have needed to make plans. I'm sorry. I wish I had something good to say for you today, but go out there and love your neighbor.
All right, shalom, shalom. First off, give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakar Give double honors to the apostles and the elders of GMS. Salutes and honors to the elect, all the brothers across the four corners who are enduring in truth and sincerity, all the men and the women who follow. This is the brother Kratazah from the GMS Nebraska camp, coming back at you with another lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. This lesson being entitled, E is Gearing Up to Go. All right, we heard the message that she gave, and she said that Trump is on April 20th, around and about the date of April 20th, Trump can be passing this Insurrection Act law, all right, or should I say activating the Insurrection Act law. So I want to get this word insurrection. Just bear with me here. So insurrection in the etymology says an uprising against civil authority, right? From the old French insurrection, or directly from the late Latin insurrectium, a rising up of who? Or insurgi, or insurgent, right? To rise up. Who's rising up? Well, the people are going to rise up, right? And that's what the scriptures say. You know, 2 Ezra 15 and 14. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword near destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up, right? One people shall stand up or rise up against another, and stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. That's insurrection. Okay? Not only that, it says, for there should be sedition among men and invading one another. Well, what's sedition? Sedition is rebellion, uprising, revolt, right? So they're one and the same. All right, Second Ezra is talking all about this. All right, for there should be sedition among men and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and that course of their actions shall stand in their power, right? But from what she's saying, people who are fighting against the government, who are speaking against the government, are who are anti. What's the word I want to use? Who are against everything with these ICE agents deporting people, you're going to be labeled an insurrectionist. You know, if you're in this truth, if you pumping this truth, all right, you could be labeled an insurrectionist. And what did the scripture say about Esau? Revelation 12 and 12. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe, which means destruction, to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil, who is Esau Edom, is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he had but a short time. Right? So he's going to come down having great wrath because he know he got a short time. And you can be labeled an insurrectionist or a seditionist and get thrown in Guantanamo Bay. But hey, this is the labor of love that we chose. We knew, you know, what we signed up for, right? Matthew 10 and 24 says the disciple is not above his master, nor the servant above his Lord. If they hated the Lord, they hated Yahushua, they're going to hate us too. Or if they persecuted Yahushua, they're going to persecute us. This is 2 Timothy 3 and 12. It says, yea, and all that will live godly in Hamashiach Yahushua shall suffer persecution. All right. So as she said, you know, they're getting all their legal mumbo jumbo, you know, lined up. So let's get that scripture real quick. Right? We hit that yesterday. Isaiah 10 and 1 says, woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that right grievousness which they have prescribed. What are they prescribing? These unjust laws. That's the unrighteous decree that they're prescribing, these unjust laws. And this Insurrection Act, let's see if we can get any information on it. The Insurrection Act is a United States federal law that empowers the President of the United States to deploy the U.S. military and federalize National Guard troops within the United States. Not outside, but within the United States. All right, so this is an old law, like she said. This ain't nothing new. All right, but actually using it, this is from 2022, but actually using it, you know, it's going to be used in the modern day sense. Yeah, like this, you know, troops at your driveway, at the end of your block. This before we get into that, let's jump back in 2 Ezra real quick. There's a little bit more meat on the bone. Verse 17 says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. Well, why wouldn't he be able to go into the city, right? Because you're going to have these troops, cutting off the city. If they shut down the highway, and detour you back into the, all right? This is Esau's plan. Excuse me. So, the Insurrection Act explained the law which lets the president deploy the military domestically and use it for civilian law enforcement is dangerously vague and in urgent need of reform. It says it's dangerously vague, which means it can be interpreted however you see it. All right, the Insurrection Act needs a major overhaul. Originally enacted in 1792, the law grants the president the authority to deploy the U.S. military domestically, which means here in America, and use it against Americans under certain conditions. While there are rare circumstances in which such authority might be necessary, the law, which has not been meaningfully updated in over 150 years, is dangerously overbroad and ripe for abuse. So if anybody wants to abuse this law, who's going to pay for it? The citizens are. What is the Insurrection Act? The Insurrection Act authorizes the president to deploy military forces inside the United States to suppress rebellion. There goes that word rebellion, which was what? Sedition. All right? Or domestic violence, or to enforce the law in certain situations. The statute implements Congress's authority under the Constitution to provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions. It is the primary exception to the Posse Comitatus Act, under which the federal military forces are generally barred from participating in civilian law enforcement activities. Although it is often referred to as the Insurrection Act of 1807, the law is actually an amalgamation of different statutes enacted by Congress between 1792 and 1871. Today, these provisions occupy sections 251 to 255 in Title 10 of the United States Code. What does invoking the Insurrection Act allow the president and the military to do? Under normal circumstances, Posse Comitatus Act forbids the U.S. military, including federal armed forces and National Guard troops who have been called into federal service, from taking part in civilian law enforcement. This prohibition reflects an American tradition that views military interference in civilian government as being inherently dangerous to liberty, right? Your freedoms. You're going to just throw your freedoms out the door, all right? You're not going to have, the right to remain silent. You're not going to have, the First Amendment to say whatever you want to say, because the military is going to deal with you, in a military force. They're going to hit you with the back of the gun. They can shoot you. They can hit you with a fucking microwave weapon that you ain't never seen before. They're not going to just be like these regular cops out here. Like the scripture said, they're going to come down with force and great wrath, knowing that they have but a short time. It says that might involve soldiers doing anything from enforcing federal court order to suppressing an uprising against the government. Of course, not every domestic use of military involves enforcement activities. Other laws, such as the Stafford Act, allow the military to be used to respond to natural disasters, public health crises, and other similar events without waiving the restrictions of Posse Comitatus, right? In theory, the Insurrection Act should be used only in a crisis that is truly beyond the capacity of civilian authorities to manage. However, the Insurrection Act fails to adequately define or limit when it may be used, and instead gives the president significant power to decide when and where to deploy U.S. military forces domestically. So at any time he deems necessary, for any reason that he deems necessary, he can just invoke this act and send the troops upon the people, right? This is Revelation 2:10. It says, "For none of those things which thou shalt suffer, behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried." So they could be set up these concentration camps. This is the beginning of Jacob's trouble. Matter of fact, let's get Matthew 24:8. It says, "All these things are slacky." Let me jump back. Verse 6. It says, "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." Right? So, no, this is not going to be the end of the world, but these things must come to pass. We're hearing these wars, and we're seeing these wars in Ukraine and in the Middle East with Israel and Gaza. We're hearing these rumors going around as well. Well, are they going to stop the war? Is America going to stop giving aid? Is Iran going to keep aiding the Houthis? Is America going to strike on the Houthis? Well, America just did strike on the Houthis. All this is stirring up the spirit of World War III, but the end is not yet. It says, "For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows." So that's where we're at right now. We're at the beginning of sorrows, all right? Because that sorrow, being a bad situation, it's going to be bad case out here. That's why it's imperative to have the Lord on your side to fight for you, to have the Lord on your side to protect you and put that hedge of protection around you. I believe that's everything I wanted to get with this. She said a couple things that I wanted to revisit, so we'll just play it one more time, and if there's something that I can highlight, I'll highlight it.
It's going to be a little bit longer than normal, but I think you guys need to hang on to the end because there's some really important information coming your way. I've been asked by multiple people, when did I think that we might need to be concerned about troops in our streets? And I've got a date for you. I've been waiting because it seems so crazy. I've been waiting to see if certain things happened before I said this, and certain things are happening that make me more convinced than ever that we need to be on our guard on or about April 20th and in the days and weeks right thereafter. Hang with me because I'm going to tell you why, and it'll make sense, and it won't sound like I'm just a crazy woman spewing things out. So on January the 20th, President Trump signed his executive order on immigration. And in that executive order, he said in 90 days from the date, which will be April 20th, that the Director of Homeland Security and the Secretary of Defense have to give a joint report to President Trump about how his immigration policy is going, how they're being able to enact his policy. And it says in there that they are specifically to consider whether additional things need to be done, including, and it mentions the Insurrection Act. Now, the Insurrection Act allows the president to send troops, our Army, our National Guards, to send them into the streets. This has happened before. This is not the first administration that has used the Insurrection Act, but this is the first administration who has ever used it in this manner, and one that has also shown such a blatant disregard for the Constitution. So on April 20th, the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Homeland Security are going to go to President Trump, and they're going to talk about whether or not they think they need to institute the Insurrection Act to implement his policies. The Insurrection Act is going to, I'm positive, is going to label anyone who is doing like the people in Boston and trying to fight for taking immigrants, people like me and many of you who are speaking out. Anyone that is going to be in any way opposition to this administration will be labeled an insurrectionist, and we will be dealt with as such. Arrests, I believe, will be imminent. People are also asking when to leave the country. I think if he follows the law, which is...
And that's what I wanted to speak on, about leaving the country. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of BS doctrines going around about Israel, about the second Exodus, and, these big cruise ships coming to pick up Jake. That's not in the scriptures. As a matter of fact, let's get what the scripture actually does say. The scripture says in Deuteronomy 28:68, the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. All right, so we're going to come to Babylon in ships. Didn't say we're going to be delivered with ships, but we're going to come to, Egypt or slavery again with ships. By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there you should be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondmen, or bondmen and bondwomen. Right, so that's how we were sold, to our enemies. All right, it says, and no man shall buy you. Now, he's not talking about we're going to be up for sale and nobody's going to purchase us. All right, we're going to be sold and we're going to be purchased, and we were sold and we were purchased, but no man shall buy you is going into no man shall save you. All right, no ships is coming to save us. All right. The chariots is how we're going to get up out of here. Are the chariots of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. So this is Strong's H7069 Quana. Let me see. Right, of the Most High originated, creating and redeeming His people. Right, so we're not going to be saved. All right, nobody's coming to save us. All right. So there are no ships coming to save us. All right, we got to go through this hell. We can't duck our judgment. Right. The Lord told Jeremiah to preach to the king of Israel and to the Israelites, to go into captivity under the Babylonians. Don't resist. And what happened? They resisted, and Jerusalem got laid flat. All right, we were commanded to come here in America to serve slavery. We weren't commanded to get up out of here before the shit hits the fan. All right, that's part of the deliverance. All right, is that we're gonna need to be delivered. All right, so no, we're not fleeing Babylon, or we're not going back to Israel or Africa or South or Central America. No, we're going to stay here in Babylon and continue to chant this place down, right? So, Lord's will, this is edifying. And, we give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakar Give double honors to the apostles and the elders of GMS. Salutes and honors to the elect, all the brothers across the four corners who are enduring in truth and sincerity, all the men and the women who follow. Shalom.